Okay, Daniel, this is my gear. I've got my wet palette, which is just a Veleda mop cloth thing with greaseproof paper, you know the drill. Got my cup with a bunch of various different types of brushes. Brushes I don't really care a whole lot about, but tend to be my workhorse brushes. If you notice on the handle I've got a little bit of a blue tack. Comes in handy. Also got my pipette. Good to have a pipette. Using some of the water, you can easily top up your wet palette, or as you've probably seen, dampen your rag. Got my water, got my rag. Also got sort of consistent plain background here. It's because if I'm painting against this, especially if I'm painting something like this against this, it can be difficult on my eyes. Okay, so I wanted to show you what happens when I take a shade, specifically the Zenithal Drakenhof Nightshade. I'd buy that for $1. What happens when I put it on this guy, who has, as you can see, got himself a bit of a cloak and a Zenithal highlight. I started on his face, see if we can get a close up. The eyes need some work. That's my model holder. That's my little model. And that's the Drakenhof Nightshade. I use a number 7 brush to transfer the shade onto the wet palette. I want a nice big blob of it on the wet palette. There we go. And then I've got a number 2 brush now, just nice and damp, taking up a little bit of the Drakenhof Nightshade and just using the wet palette to sort of remove any excess before I put it on. And when I'm applying it, I'm trying to apply it in nice single strokes, trying not to go over areas I've already painted. Trying to do it with just one fine layer, nice and smooth, and always painting in the same direction. So if I do a stroke from top to bottom, I'm going to do a stroke next to that, top to bottom. There's something called the wet edge in painting, and that's where the next application of paint is applied on the wet edge, as in the youngest edge of the last piece of paint that was applied. I'm probably not explaining it very well, so it might be worthwhile looking up, but the wet edge is kind of where you want to put your next brush stroke. As you can see, I'm trying to keep them nice and straight, smooth, and just so there's one application of the shade all over. You'll see the handle that I'm using to hold the model. You can get that from Zenithal for £5 or so, but you could also very easily just get a moisturiser bottle that Ash isn't using anymore, an empty moisturiser bottle, pop some blue tack on top of it. It should be fine as long as you can easily hold it, grip it in your hand, and that'll make for a good holder for any sort of small pieces like this one. That's a layer of the shade applied now pretty much all over. Now you could take this a step further and apply a second coat of the shade. That would darken things up. You'd still get the effect of the Zenithal highlight coming through. The other thing you could do is use the model as it is now as a sort of map to put in some dark blues and some light blues, and you could really flesh it out from there with the information that you're getting from that shaded zenithal highlight. This is what we started with, as you can see, before and after. Look at that face. And that's him in his Canadian tuxedo.